Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for Osteoporosis Canada's webinar, Grilled Beef and Halloumi Skewers in partnership with ThinkBeef.ca. Before we begin today's webinar, Osteoporosis Canada acknowledges the land our offices, located in Toronto, are on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. My name is Tracie Napoli, Director of Development in MARCOM at Osteoporosis Canada, and I will be your webinar host. We are live streaming this webinar on the Osteoporosis Canada Facebook page, so a big welcome to everyone watching on Facebook Live. This presentation will provide general information about cooking and food knowledge. It is not intended as individualized health or nutrition advice. If you have questions about nutrition, consult a physician or registered dietitian. During the cooking demonstration, you can enter any questions you have by clicking the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. Also, if you have any comments you wish to share with everyone, you can do so in the chat. We will attempt to answer questions submitted during this live webinar within the time available. Over the last few months, Osteoporosis Canada has been working to provide strategies, new ideas, and recipes to help you get the bone-building nutrients needed to keep bones strong and healthy. Nutrition plays an important role in overall bone health and in preventing and managing osteoporosis. When planning meals, include foods with bone-building nutrients like calcium and protein. And be sure to take a vitamin D supplement daily. Calcium is one of the key minerals that makes bone hard, and vitamin D ensures our bodies can absorb enough calcium. Osteoporosis Canada recommends including protein daily in your diet to benefit muscle and bone health. For overall health, Canada's Food Guide recommends including protein foods at every meal. Some examples are beef, eggs, fish, poultry, pork, tofu, legumes, nuts, milk, yogurt, and cheese. Beef has many essential nutrients packed into each small serving, providing nutrients that are difficult to get from other foods like iron, zinc, and vitamin B12. Let's begin today's cooking demo with the featured recipe, grilled beef and halloumi skewers with 18 grams of protein and 175 milligrams of calcium per serving. I also want to mention that today's webinar is in partnership with ThinkBeef.ca. Today's webinar will be recorded and you will be able to watch it later on. To get the recipe, you can also go to osteoporosis.ca/recipes. It's now my pleasure to welcome Emily Richards, professional home economist, freelance food writer, chef, and cookbook author who enjoys culinary instruction for home cooks who want to learn more and have fun in the kitchen. Emily is the author and co-author of 9 cookbooks and also writes and develops recipes for print and online publications that include everyday cooking and healthy eating. You can see Emily share her passion for food on radio and television appearances and on webcasts just like this one. It's now my pleasure to please welcome Emily. Hi, Emily.
Hey, Tracie. Hey, everyone. So glad that you could join me here this afternoon. It is a not so sunny day, but that doesn't mean that we can't have fun cooking and grilling, right, Tracie? It's all about having fun.
Absolutely. And with the weather, so we've got everything set up, so we've got all our bases covered. So Emily, we're so excited to get started.
Perfect. We are using Canadian beef today, and it's a wonderful addition to these skewers because it just offers up some versatility and flavor and texture, and it is absolutely colorful because of the vegetables that we're using. We're actually, for those of you that don't know, using one of my favorite vegetables, rapini, and we are putting it on the grill as well. So I was planning on being outside today, but we will be going to the grill. So you will see that happen, but I'm doing most of the work inside so that I don't get struck by lightning, because who wants that on a on a Tuesday afternoon. So we're going to start off with the marinade for our beef. Now we're actually just marinating the beef because the vegetables are there to add some texture, and their sweetness will provide enough flavor, so we don't need to add them to the marinade. And this marinade has a little bit of a unique twist to it because it has great flavors, but we're also using yogurt as kind of the main part of the marinade. So I'm going to get started with that first. And I'm just going to use a shallow dish. So this is just a casserole dish. You could use a bowl. You could do this in a resealable plastic bag, whatever will fit in your refrigerator. But I'm going to use this because it will give me the ability to make sure all my beef is well covered. So I'm going to start off with some plain yogurt. This is a thicker yogurt, so it's a Greek style yogurt. You can use whatever yogurt you have at home. Flavored is not the way to go here. We do want plain so that the flavor that we offer in the marinade does come through. So if you're wondering why we're using yogurt in the marinade, it's simply because it offers up a little bit of acidity and helps to break down the protein a little bit. Now we're using a grilling cut today, so it doesn't need to be tender because it already is tender. We want to penetrate the flavor into the beef. So that's why we're using the yogurt in there. So we're also going to add a little bit of lemon, and that's going to really brighten up the flavor and also lighten up the marinade a bit. So I'm using both lemon rind, so zest, and juice. What you can do is just give your lemon a nice little wash under the sink, soapy water, and that just helps kind of open up the pores, remove any waxiness on the outside, and just starts to bring that lovely aroma of lemon right into the kitchen. And then I'm just using a rasp here. You could use a grater, or if you don't have either, you could just use a vegetable peeler and mince the lemon zest nice and fine. So just about half a teaspoon is going to go in there, okay? And I'm going to use 2 tablespoons of the lemon juice as well. So because I need the lemon zest, I squeezed the lemon, so I'm using fresh lemon juice here. So just a couple tablespoons going in. And that really enhances the lemon flavor and also adds another little bit of acidity. So again, helping bring that flavor of lemon, but also some garlic. You didn't think I was going to miss out on garlic here, did you? So a couple cloves of fresh garlic, which happened to be from my garden. I had a bumper crop this year, so I'm happy to get some garlic into the marinade, as well as some dried oregano. Now, if you're not a fan of dried oregano, you could use another dried herb like thyme. Dried basil would be lovely in this as well. I'm using 1.5 teaspoons, and that's really going to give us a wonderful flavor, as well as a 1/4 teaspoon of the salt and pepper right in there. I'm just going to switch over to my whisk and get that started. And I'm also going to add 2 tablespoons of canola oil. So I want a flavorless oil here so that, again, all the flavor of the herbs and the lemon come through. So a neutral oil like canola oil works really well. So I'm going to use 2 tablespoons in the marinade as well. This will also help when we put the skewers on the grill to help kind of not have everything stick to it, okay? So just give that a whisk, and that is ready to go, okay? I like getting the marinade ready first, so that then once I cut my steaks, I can put it right into the marinade. Now, because this is a nice thick consistency and has lots of flavor, this is a quick marinade because, again, we're not doing this for tenderness. We are doing it for flavor. So let me get our beef, and I do have it in the fridge. We are using 2 strip loin grilling steaks today. Why 2? Because I need about 1 pound. So or about 500 grams. So you can check your packaging or ask the butcher to give you 1 pound of strip loin steak. You could also use a top sirloin grilling steak. And basically what we're looking for is the grilling variety of beef so that we have that nice tenderness. These aren't going to be on the grill for very long. So as you would use for any other type of steak, you could even use a tenderloin here if you wanted to, or ribeye. If you happen to have some in the freezer that you need to use up, this is a great opportunity. So I'm going to be using the strip loin, and I did specifically look for a thicker cut steak. So anywhere, I'll hold it up sideways here, and hopefully you can see how thick they are. They're about 3/4 of an inch to 1 inch thick. Now, If you take a look at the recipe, I'm very specific about all the sizing. And with skewers, it tends to be a little bit of a necessity because you want everything to kind of cook at the same rate. And you don't want anything to fall off. So having everything about the same size really, really helps. So the first thing I want to do is, you can see that these steaks have this lovely little bit of fat on the outer edge. I'm actually going to cut that off and cut the steaks into my cubes and just add it right to the marinade. Now, if I was doing these steaks on their own, I would season them with a little bit of canola oil, salt and pepper, and throw them right on the grill, and they would be absolutely delicious. But we really want to make these steaks go further. We're making about 8 or 10 skewers, so it really will feed a family quite easily. So that's why we're going through the process of cutting everything. So really important, sharp knife. So I did sharpen my knives to make sure that I won't be struggling through this. So hopefully you'll notice that. But you can see that little bit of edging of the fat there. There's not too much on here. So if you don't want to trim it off, you don't have to. It's really that kind of thicker, firm fat that I want to remove. So I just have a few little pieces here on the edge that I'm going to remove. And then we're looking at about 1.5 inch pieces. So if I do my guesstimate here across, this is about a 3-inch wide steak. So I'm going to cut it lengthwise all the way down and then just cut it into small cubes just to make my life easier. And you can see with strip loin steaks that it has a really nice marbling, which really helps for that tenderness when you are grilling. And it will offer up that nice absorption of the marinade as well. Cut those into a couple more pieces. So this one here had that little bit of a thicker fat cap on it. So I'm just going to take my knife and kind of trim it away just like that before I cut it. So it is nice and firm. If you have a nice sharp knife, it will cut through quite easily. Okay. And if you don't feel comfortable with your chef's knife doing this, you could always use a smaller paring knife, and that will work as well. You could also ask the butcher to give you some grilling cubes and specify that you would like to use strip loin or top sirloin, and they'll cut them for you too. Okay. So just like that, our small cubes going through. So I did mention that this is a quick marinade. And what that means is basically under an hour to get that flavor in there. So I'm just going to take away my board and plate here and give my hands a wash. And so you can leave it in the marinade for as little as 15 minutes to get that flavor into the beef, or you can cover it and refrigerate it and put it into the fridge for about an hour. Okay, so what you want to do is make sure, I'll bring this back here so you can see. I'm just going to make sure that all my beef is coated nicely with the marinade. Okay, so I did this ahead of time so that I could let it sit for about an hour, and I have one waiting for me in the refrigerator. Okay, so I'll go grab that one. I'll just set this one aside for the moment. So this is actually great. I love making skewers if you have a larger gathering or a larger family, because you can actually get everything ready, you can marinate the beef, have all the vegetables chopped up, and then make the skewers and have them ready for the grill so that everyone can kind of help themselves. So they are really a wonderful thing to get on the grill. And they do cook up nice and quickly. So as you can see, I have the beef cubes marinated there. And I also have my other ingredients cut up in about the same size pieces. So here's my peppers. I love having all the colors here. So I have a red and yellow pepper. This could be a green pepper, whatever color peppers you want to use. You could also use other vegetables here. If you happen to have a lot of zucchini in the garden, great place to use it here. But again, you want to make sure that the size of the vegetable is similar to the size of the beef, so that when we skewer everything together, it will stay on. The other thing I love adding is just a nice little bit of button mushrooms to my skewers. Typically, I add them near the end. I find that they're the first to fall off if they're not secured on well. So I usually save them for the end. But button mushrooms are a great addition to add, whether it's a cremini or a white button mushroom. Now, here's something that you may not have yet to add to your skewer, but we're going to add it today. I've already cubed it up, but I do have it in the refrigerator, and that is our halloumi cheese, since they are grilled beef and halloumi. So here is my halloumi that I've cubed, again, similar sized pieces. And this is a grilling cheese. So you can actually find it in the grocery store, usually in with all your other cheeses. And sometimes it will specify that it is called halloumi, but there are also other local dairies that produce grilling cheeses that you can look for. And if you can't find any of those, you could also use paneer, which is, again, another firm cheese that is great on the grill. So you have lots of options here to add that wonderful bit of calcium and protein from the halloumi itself. Okay, so let's talk skewers. Skewers, you can go metal or bamboo. And I have a version of both here to show you. I'm going to use metal when I start to, I do a lot of skewers, so I have a lot of metal skewers. I find that they're super easy. If you love having kebabs, then they're handy to have on hand. But if you don't make them all the time, bamboo skewers are the way to go. The one thing you have to do with them, so not to cause flames on your barbecue, is to soak them in a little bit of water. So I have these larger bamboo skewers here, okay? So any type of wood skewer. And in this little pan, I have water, okay? So you just wanna make sure that you put them in the water. I would start this process before I start everything else, because you wanna leave them in there for about 30 minutes, and that will help reduce any flare-up from the skewers themselves once you get to the grill, okay? So where am I gonna put these skewers to take them out to the grill? I have a sheet pan. I just put a little bit of parchment paper on there. You don't have to. And I'm going to start skewering. And I figured I'd start doing this process so that I could put a little bit of skewers. And Tracie, I saw a lot of action happening in the chat box. So I'm not sure what people are asking, but this would be a great time to kind of chat a little bit about what people are wondering about.
Well, so I did post the recipe in the chat, and some people were asking about where they could get the marinade recipe. So it's all part of the recipe that we have on the website. And then we had just another question actually about a different recipe. So, and about different ingredients that can be used for other recipes. If you check out osteoporosis.ca/recipes, you can find all different kinds of recipes using different kinds of foods. So I will also post that other link, which is actually already posted, thanks to Matthew, right at the top of our chat. So I encourage you to go and take a look at that site. But let's talk a little bit about the options for produce, because I know you mentioned zucchini, and I know we've got the peppers. And I think the great thing about this dish right now is that with all the produce coming in from the gardens, or if you go to the farmer's market or your local grocer, there's so many options, and really that's where you can pick and choose what you like. I know people who don't like peppers, some people like onions, but I think that the thing is, I know I have a whole long list of things that I like. And when Emily and I develop recipes, we're always kind of like, I'm like, what would I like? This is everything I would like. But I think the key thing, and Emily spoke about it, is not just the same size of the vegetable, but also the grilling time. Like what's going to grill at the same time, right, Emily? That the meat and the halloumi, that the beef and the halloumi is going to grill. So that's really important as well. You want to make sure that the textures are all good.
That's right. And so when you're thinking about the vegetables, you don't want something too dense that will then not be fully cooked as you're cooking the skewers. So you want to make sure that more of the tender vegetables is what you're looking for. And I know that there is many people that like to have just meat skewers and then a vegetable skewer, which you could totally do with this recipe. I like the fact that there's a little bit of everything, because this is the way that I can ensure that, you know, the kids eat the vegetables too, and they don't take those vegetable skewers. So it's a good way to balance it out in that regard. If you wanted to use something like, I'm going to use eggplant as an example because it tends to be a little bit more dense and it doesn't always grill nicely in cubes as we're using here. So if you wanted to use eggplant, I would actually just cube it, and then you could either steam it a little bit or you can even roast it just a touch to soften it so that when you put it on the grill, it does cook fully and you don't kind of get that rubbery texture. It's not a good thing for eggplant, so you definitely don't want to do that. But you could also use something like a little tomato on here. I would replace, let's say, the mushroom or add it at the end because it can have that tendency to fall off. So you want to, as I am, just adding that mushroom right at the end so that it is accessible. And the other reason why I do that is if one falls off, I can always replace it with another one really, really quickly. I'm going to be using everything here. So you'll notice that I'm kind of putting my hands in everything. If you know that you don't really love peppers, don't cut up a whole pepper and don't, start skewering it and getting the marinade all over, because as you can see, there's lots of contamination that's happening here. So if you know that you're not going to be using everything, only use what you set aside what you're going to use before starting the skewering process, okay? And the main thing with the skewers is that I'm trying to get everything in the center. You can do every single one the same, or you can change it up. It's really, really up to you on how you want to play it out. If you love mushrooms, add a couple extra mushrooms. I like to put the peppers near the end, and as I'm skewering them here, I'm actually have the curve of the pepper going up. I find that it just tends to sit a little bit better and that it holds the meat in it. So as I put the beef cubes on, you can see it kind of sits nicely in the little curve of the pepper there. I'll put another piece in there. And then the halloumi, again, this is a little bit of a firmer cheese. So again, in the center, you can go lengthwise here or crosswise. I'm just going to push it through, and don't kind of do this too quickly. Go nice and slow so that you get it all the way through the center. If you find that, a little bit has popped off, put another piece of beef at the end here. You can always fix it and re-skewer it, okay? So feel comfortable in knowing that, you have control of the skewer itself. So I'm gonna do one more skewer here and then set everything aside, because we have to talk about my favorite vegetable, which is rapini, and why I love grilling it. But not everybody loves rapini. So if I was grilling it just for myself, I would take that rapini and just throw it on the grill, because I love that bitterness. For those of you that have never had rapini, I'm just going to set all this aside, give my hands another wash. I'll finish them off later, I promise, Tracie. I will not let anything go to waste. I have hungry teenagers that will happily enjoy skewers.
Oh, that's so good. If I was closer, I'd be coming over to have some myself.
Yes, you would be an additional hungry teenager to the ones here. So it would be quite nice. All right, so I'm just gonna set these aside. And again, as I said, you could get these ready. They could be in the fridge, ready to go on the grill, okay? But let's talk rapini. So here is a bunch of rapini. Usually weighs about a pound. Delicious vegetable, does have a little bit of bitterness. So that's why we're doing this little step, which is blanching the rapini. So before we do that, give your rapini a rinse, which I already have. And then there are just little split ends on the bottom here. So this is basically, it's been trimmed as it's been picked and packaged, and it tends to split. You don't have to do this, but what I like to do, let me just grab a knife, is just trim and kind of expose the freshness of the ends of the rapini. You don't have to take much off, okay? That's about maybe a quarter or half an inch, and just trim that, okay? Now in the back on my stove, I do have some boiling water, nice big pot of boiling water. There's no salt in it. And all I'm gonna do is put my rapini right into the pot, okay? Make sure it's completely submerged, and then just put a timer on for 3 minutes. So what does this process do? It just helps remove some of that bitterness. What I also want you to look at when you're purchasing your rapini is the color of it. Make sure it's nice and green. There's not really any wilted leaves on it. If you start to see some yellow in the buds, all that means is that it's a little bit older, it's starting to age, and it may be a little bit more bitter. So if you've ever had any mustardy greens, that's kind of what rapini's flavor is. It has kind of that little bit of bitterness. So just by blanching it for a short period of time, it reduces that. It also adds a little bit of tenderness so that when we go and put it on the grill, it will take less time to cook, but will also have a really nice bright flavor. So I've already blanched some. And when you take it out of the water, you don't need to rinse it or anything, just drain it well. But I do want you to just pat it dry with a little bit of paper towel, okay? Just so that we don't have any flare-ups with water on our grill, okay? And then I am gonna add just a little bit of oil to the rapini so that it doesn't stick too much to our grill. Okay, so that's just a couple tablespoons going on to our rapini, and then I'm just going to give it a little toss in my plate here. Okay, just like that. So that means we get to go to the grill now. And what that also means is that I've already had my grill on. Anytime you're grilling, it's a good idea to let your grill come up to heat. So we're looking at a medium-high heat, and if you have a thermometer or the actual thermometer, whether it's on the barbecue or in the barbecue, we're looking at about 400 degrees. So we want this to be nice and hot. I did clean my barbecue, although when you look at it, you may think, wow, she uses her barbecue a lot, and I do. So I did scrub it, but I am gonna just put a light coating of cooking spray on it before I put everything on. And that's just an added measure to kind of make sure nothing sticks to it. Now, if you're uncomfortable with using cooking spray, you can always just put a little bit of canola oil onto paper towel and rub the grill grates before you turn it on, okay? So totally whatever you're comfortable with. I'm going to take my rapini and my skewers to the grill, but I'm also gonna turn off my timer. So you're not gonna see me, but you will see my grill and you will hear me. So you will all of a sudden see the food appear on the grill. So this is exactly what everybody else would be doing. You know, you get all your food ready in the kitchen and then you're heading out to the barbecue. And it's still not raining, but it's pretty gray out here, but that's okay. So my grill is nice and hot, and I'm just going to get a little bit of cooking spray on. And I'm going to put my skewers on, just like so. And these really only take about, well, the way I like them, I like my beef about medium rare. So usually about 8 minutes, so about 4 minutes per side. I usually flip them once. And then at the same time, I'm going to put my rapini on. So try to spread it out as best you can, especially if you like crispy greens, because this will definitely give you some nice crispness, okay? So I'm gonna come back in and we'll chat a little bit more about some of our ingredients. And if any of you have any questions, I will answer them. Okay, did that look appetizing, I hope, Tracie? Because I couldn't see it from my end.
It did, but I do have to share that we had a little technical glitch where it took us a while to get the actual barbecue on the shot, but we did see it beautifully. You laid all the skewers and the rapini out. But you know what would be really great right now? So let's talk a little bit about the ingredients, like you said. And so I think a lot of people, when they think about using beef, they don't think of using a steak like this, where you can cut it up, a really flavorful piece, and then it goes farther than, let's say, just having a steak for one or maybe even two. So can you talk a little bit about the cut of meat that we're using?
Yes, for sure. And that brings up a great point, because oftentimes we think of grilling steak. So, and when I say grilling steak, I'm talking about strip loin, top sirloin, ribeye, beef tenderloin, all those steaks that as I said, a little salt and pepper on the grill. They're absolutely delicious. And oftentimes when we think of those steaks, we're going to sit down and have steak. So, and have your vegetables with it. So by incorporating it into a skewer, we actually make a small amount of beef go a lot longer, a lot further for a meal. So in case of our kebabs, for example, you can get 8 or 10 kebabs. If you want to make them smaller, they're also great for an appetizer. So if you wanted to serve these as like a bite-sized portion, this would be fabulous for that. And again, you're using that grilling cut, but you're serving a lot more people. It's also wonderful to use in stir fries because it cooks so quickly and you don't have to cook it as long. I talked about that marinade being there for flavor as opposed for tenderness. And that's again, within those grilling cuts, it really benefits to add flavor, but we know that it's going to be nice and tender because it is a grilling cut. So I specifically use the strip loin steaks that were a bit thicker, but top sirloin would work here as well. And I've actually used some other, I had one ribeye. It was this lonely little ribeye. There's 5 in my family. What was I going to do with it? So I actually did cut it up nice and thinly. I made a stir fry and we all ate from it. So, this is a great way to extend the one single steak that you might have, or that's all that you want to purchase for the week, and extend it. So this is a great example of doing that. And then serving it with lots of vegetables like we are. Not only are you getting the benefit nutritionally, but the color of it, and it just changes it up from, the usual steak and potato or steak and rice. So it's a really nice change up.
Well, that's great. And I think the other thing we're getting questions on. So, summertime is great. Mind you, it depends what part of the country you live in. Some people can barbecue or grill a little bit longer than others. But if you don't have a barbecue or an outdoor grill, or if you don't, if you live in an apartment, how can you make this? Just using your stove, or maybe using a stovetop grill?
Yes, if you have a little indoor grill, I always, when I teach cooking classes, everyone, speaks honors of the George Foreman grill that they still own from years ago. And that's a great thing to use, or any other indoor grill. I purchased this grill pan years and years ago. It's just a nonstick grill pan. You can get a cast iron version, and it really is fabulous to give you the grill marks. And kind of the essence of why you're grilling, so that, it feels like summer. So if it's pouring outside, or you're not able to have a grill at your condo or apartment, this is a great option. And there's lots of different ways. Now you don't even have to go out to a store, Tracie. You can just order it online.
We've all done that, right? A lot of that.
Now, if you don't want a grill pan, but you have lots of skillets, you could use a skillet. There's no question that this would work. Pan frying the rapini in a skillet as well as the skewers, easily done. One of my favorite ways, if I don't feel like heading outside, is also using my broiler. So that's the top part of your oven. Some older stoves and ovens come with a broiler pan that, many of us don't use anymore, but you could totally use that. Or you could just simply line a baking sheet with foil, put your skewers on. I like to leave about 4 inches away from the broiler so that I have the opportunity to turn the kebabs as I would on the grill, so that I can get them golden brown all the way around. So there's lots of ways to cook these skewers so that you can be outdoors, indoors, and whatever fits your lifestyle of how you want to cook it. In the end, having that nice caramelization happen from the heat, whether it's on the grill or in the oven or in your pan, is what's going to help provide the flavor and the color that we're looking for. Okay, I'm going to go out and flip my skewers, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to talk about halloumi, because I want to show you what it looks like, or at least one way you can find it in the grocery store, because I know sometimes that can be a little tricky to find. All right, so I can already start to see there's some nice golden brown happening here. And I tend to flip my skewers from the center where the halloumi is. Try to keep it all, because that can be the trickiest part to flip, but we have that nice golden brown color happening. Now, the other thing I should let everyone know is that all grills are different. So you may have a hot spot on your grill, which means it may cook a little bit faster than on another part. I'm just switching tongs here, but look at that nice bit of char on my rapini, which is what I absolutely love, that crunch. Okay. So if you do have hot spots, you might have to move your skewers around so that they do cook a little bit more evenly. I tend to have a bit more heat coming from the back part of my grill instead of the front, but as you can see, they're all kind of cooking fairly evenly. I am going to move this back one though a little bit, just because I feel like he's cooking a little too fast. There we go. And we'll close it back up. So these will be done in a few minutes. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about halloumi, because it's one of my favorite cheeses. It's a great addition to salads, for example. I typically get questions about it, where to find it, or what else can I use. So we talked a little bit about it as I was skewering, but halloumi has lots of companies are now making it, and it's a vac pack that you'll find. It's usually 200 or 250 gram packages. Comes in just a little bit of brine, but it is a nice firm cheese that is made for grilling or pan frying. And it's a wonderful way to add some calcium into a salad, for example, or in our case, the kabob. So you can use it in many different ways. The bonus being that it is firm enough that it doesn't really melt and get gooey. So if you think of mozzarella, for example, it will kind of melt away on the grill. You might not be able to catch it as it falls through the grate. Halloumi is a little bit firmer, so you have the ability to do that. And it has a little bit of saltiness to it. So we didn't add too much salt to the beef. And again, nothing to the vegetables, because as you take everything off the kabob, the skewer, and enjoy it, it really does balance out all the flavor together. It really is delicious. Any other questions, Tracie?
Well, yes, we do actually. And we also have, so I should mention, not just people from Canada are tuning in. We've got some folks from the US. So Michelle, thank you so much for your message. She really is enjoying our cooking demo series, along with a lot of our other regulars. I see some names of people that I'm recognizing from some past webinars. So it's so great to see and connect with everyone like this. We actually received a question while we were promoting the webinar on Instagram, and it was about the calcium in rapini and halloumi. And I guess part of this is also, why do we, we use rapini. There's actually a few recipes with rapini on the website. So rapini cooked have calcium. And so part of what we try to do is, when we create these recipes, is that we want to include a variety of different ingredients that have protein and calcium and bone building nutrients that we need. So the individual on Instagram had asked, the amount of calcium per serving. So just to give you context, rapini, so for 100 grams of rapini, there's 118 milligrams of calcium of cooked rapini. And also in halloumi, for a 30-gram cube, so a small 3 centimeter by 3 centimeter, there's 215 milligrams of calcium. So that was a calcium question based on the ingredients. Now, also people are asking, there's someone else who's asking here, if green beans would work with this. Let's say you didn't want to use rapini. And so I guess our suggestion is, if you can, try to find ingredients that you can substitute that also have the nutritional properties that we're looking for. But green beans are great, and they have all kinds of different nutrients, right? So, I mean, could you put green beans on the grill? Would that still work, or would they fall through? Or what do you suggest? They would fall through on mine.
As long as you put them the right way and not through the grate,
yes,
you'll have no problem whatsoever. And green beans grilled are absolutely delicious. And I would actually do them very similarly as the rapini. So we blanched the rapini slightly. You can do the exact same thing with green beans. And if you can find those really long green beans, those are fabulous on the grill. Blanch them for about 2 minutes. They don't need as much time, and then just finish them off on the grill. Again, adding that little bit of neutral oil and some salt and pepper is what I'm going to add after. It smells really good. So I'm going to head back to the grill to grab everything. And I do have a big baking sheet out there that I'm going to put everything on. It just makes it a little bit easier for me to get everything off the grill. So I'm going to take my rapini off. I would actually just eat this rapini in a nice big sandwich with some of that halloumi cheese, and it would be delicious. It's the added bonus of the skewers in there that I'm excited about. So the trick is trying to keep them all together. I'm sure you can all feel my urgency of trying to keep these kebabs together.
And the amazing thing is also, but Emily, the amazing thing is this is why we use halloumi. It's like, it just doesn't melt the same way we're used to cheese melting.
That's right. And it has this beautiful, you'll see it a little bit more in the, as I come into the kitchen, it has that really nice golden color, much like the beef, if you take a close look at it, okay? It has a really nice golden color right on the halloumi and a little bit of a crunch that is gonna offer up as well. So I'm just gonna season the rapini because I didn't add any salt and pepper to it. So just the remaining salt and pepper from the recipe goes on that. I'm just gonna toss it a little bit, okay? And then you take some of this delicious rapini, you can put it on your plate like that. And you can just take a couple of the kebabs and put them on your plate like that, okay? And you can serve them just like that. Or one of my favorite ways to do it is, I'm just gonna grab another plate here. And this is what I tend to do when the kids are eating, because I want them to enjoy some too, is take some of that rapini. So I'm just using that as my base, okay? And then if you are gonna hold on to the skewer, make sure you have something, because the metal ones especially are hot. And then you can just pull it right off and serve it right on the rapini like that, so that no one has to kind of fuss with the skewer itself. You can just grab a fork, maybe a knife, and dig in, because everything is in bite-sized pieces, just like that. Okay, so there's a couple options. If you want to go a little bit more casual and serve up the kebabs, or with a fork, you can just dig right in if you want. I'll just dig right in, Tracie.
You have to be our official taste tester because none of us are there. It looks delicious. It looks so good. I've got one more question about beef. Oh, are you good? Bless you. Did it
I
go
was trying
away?
to mute, it went away. I was trying to mute myself because I thought that's going to be really loud if I sneeze. I think I got some pepper up my nose, but I'm good. I think it's gone now.
It's gone now? Okay, there you go. That's great. But I just want to talk about the cooking the beef a little bit more, because I think sometimes people are unsure of the right amount of time. And especially since we're cutting, these in smaller bite-sized portions, how can people tell if they're also maybe not so great at, sticking to a timer? And, meat thermometers are great.
Yes, they are. And because we're cutting them into fairly big chunks, about 1.5-inch pieces, there is enough space that all you need to do is take out your instant read thermometer and just kind of put it in there, okay? And then you can actually check the doneness. So if you're looking for medium rare, or if you want to cook it to medium, anywhere between that 135 to 145 mark is what you're looking for. And this one's 140. So having an instant read thermometer, I know sometimes we think, well, they're skewers, they'll be fine, but it's always a guarantee that you know that the beef is going to be cooked properly. So that's really important. The other thing that I use as a measure is actually the halloumi. When it gets that nice golden brown color, as it does here, and it hasn't fallen off, it pretty much means the beef is done. So I've used that as a little bit of a guide too, which I think is fabulous. And so there's ways, and kind of, you could call them tricks, but really it is a matter of, cooking them and having things at the similar size so that it's cooking evenly. And for the vegetables, I still want that little bit of crispness in the peppers. So that's why you'll see the nice little bit of kind of caramelization happening on the edges, but when you bite into it, you'll still get that nice kind of texture of the pepper itself, which is lovely and works really well with the juicy beef cube and that wonderful briny halloumi.
That's great. One last question. We had a couple of, and I know you talked about it at the beginning, but in terms of substituting halloumi, we're being asked if paneer and you did mention that. So do you need to make any adjustments, or you pretty much can just use the paneer as is, cut it up in the same size and skewer it?
Yes, exactly. Now paneer comes usually in twice as large package as halloumi. So for this recipe, you only need half a package, unless you're doubling up and making, twice as many skewers, by all means. But again, it has that nice firm texture to cut and cube, and it grills wonderfully. So as long as everything's about the same size as the beef, you should be good to go. So yes, paneer is a great option. And anyone in Ontario, there's a grilling cheese called Guernsey Girl. That is another option for you as well. So there's a lot of smaller dairies that are producing grilling cheeses that all you have to do is kind of ask and confirm that it's a grilling cheese, and it will grill up beautifully.
Well, that sounds great. So are you going to do the taste test? Did you do it before? I didn't see you do it, because I know
I didn't do it because the sneeze was going to happen, and then I was talking. So, and you know how that works when I talk.
I know.
And now I chew.
And now you chew. No, that, it's just, you're doing it for all of us. That is so amazing. So thank you so much to Emily. I'm just going to, sorry, there we go. Going to share the screen here. All right, sorry, everyone. There we go. So we did have some questions about, calcium content and some maybe other vegetables if you wanted to swap them in. And what I would suggest is that you visit the Osteoporosis Canada website, and you can use the calcium calculator. There's a calculate your calcium tool. It has all different types of foods that contain calcium, from milk and alternatives to fruits and vegetables, grains, legumes, proteins, others. So you can kind of get in there and check out how much calcium there is per serving. We also have the recipes I mentioned on osteoporosis.ca//recipes. There's the Know Your Risk quiz, which is great to know your risk of osteoporosis. So we encourage you to get on the website and check that out. And this webinar will be available in the next 48 hours on our OC replay page. And you can also watch previous webinars, all different topics that we have on the osteoporosiscanada.ca website. A big thank you, as always, to our partners who help us put on these wonderful webinars. So ThinkBeef.ca, great partner. And of course, to Emily for hosting another great a webinar for us, another delicious cooking demo. And if you are not registered with Osteoporosis Canada to receive, or if you don't subscribe to our national e-newsletter, I encourage you to visit the Osteoporosis Canada homepage. Go right to the top right-hand corner to the subscribe button. We have so many new webinars that are coming up this fall. We're working really hard to get lots of different content out, and that way we can let you know about webinars and also upcoming podcasts and a whole bunch of other information that we've got ready and upcoming for fall 2021. Also, please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And until next time, thank you for joining us. And please continue to stay connected and informed by following us, subscribing, and staying in touch. Take care, everyone, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much for coming. Bye-bye.